But yeah, man, he's got a lot going on. Have you talked to him? Have you chatted with him at all? Because city of Pittsburgh, okay, he's never played there. He has never come out and said, yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the teams I'm contemplating playing for. Everybody else has kind of said this. I don't think he has said anything about it. City of Pittsburgh saying, hey, listen, we're buying big night out tickets, and Aaron Rodgers is telling us whether or not he wants to be a Steeler because we're tired of waiting. That is literally what the city of Pittsburgh is kind of feeling at this exact moment.
Yeah,
right?
The majority's already sick of it. I mean, it's been 2 days, 3 days since free agency has started. And, well, actually, it's been less than 24 hours since Aaron has officially been a free agent from the Jet. But we're not on his time. We're on our time, okay? We don't have we didn't have a quarterback, okay? We do now, so we've eased off a little bit.
But it is bananas to think that listen, I love Yinzers, okay? Lucky, obviously,
They're
doing this show in Pittsburgh. Yeah, Yinzers are like, this guy don't want to play for the Steelers? Okay.
The hell?
Okay.
That's exactly.
What is taking so long here? Okay, you're welcome. We even gave you an invite. You know, that is kind of how Steelers fans are feeling at this moment. They have no idea if Aaron still wants to play. They have no idea, what all Aaron could be potentially contemplating. They just know that they've heard from multiple national sources that the Pittsburgh Steelers are waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Is that real? We don't know. Does Aaron know that that is kind of the narrative? Literally don't know. But Pittsburgh Steelers fans heard from Schrags. They heard from Shefty. They've heard, obviously, from Florio a bunch. They've heard from local Jerry Dulac, who covers the Steelers. All the local media being like, now we just wait for Aaron Rodgers to decide whether or not he wants to bless Pittsburgh with his presence. That is how it is being presented. And Aaron's just looking at the ocean trying to figure out what to happen. And once again, this is Aaron Rodgers football. This is kind of how it goes. Everything about him, this is kind of how it goes.
Yeah, and I feel like we've talked about, the Vikings and Aaron and how perfect of a matching that would be and how great he would be in Minnesota. But I think Pittsburgh fans also are pissed off. And Tony, you could definitely correct me because you're an actual Steelers fan. I'm just speculating here. Like every year, the entire thing is, hey, they have a winning record. They have a winning record. Like we're talking about Pittsburgh kind of lesser than we are with the Vikings because, the Vikings have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, all those things. Like the
Coach of the year,
Coach of the year, everything like that. But Pittsburgh wins. Like it feels as though if Aaron were to go there, like to act as if they're not winning, 12, 13 games like we're acting with the Vikings, even though everyone in the Vikings division is getting exponentially better and the Steelers have multiple teams in their division. Like if he goes and plays the Bengals twice a year, like guess what? I'm playing safety for the Bengals this year. So it feels as though, Aaron Rodgers will have a very good day against a team like that. Obviously the Browns are the Browns. The Ravens are good, sure, but every team has, at least one dominant team, and it feels like Steelers fans know, like, hey, we're going to win 12, 13 games if Rodgers comes in.
The New York Times, The Athletic, reported yesterday, via Diana Rossini and Mike Silver of NFL Network, I think, is where Mike Silver works. If I got that wrong, sorry, I don't pay attention to you. The Vikings are weighing the possibility of signing Aaron Rodgers as they ponder potential veteran options at quarterback to pair with J.J. McCarthy. Rodgers is intrigued by the possibility of playing for Minnesota. Okay, interesting. Because Mike Silver, once again, been in the NFL, around the NFL for a very long time. He reported a few days ago, like, J.J. McCarthy is not necessarily the starter here. Kevin O'Connell has a lot of weight in the decision-making over there, and they are, still thinking about bringing in a veteran quarterback. It was like, oh, that veteran quarterback would be Aaron Rodgers. Now, nothing has been said from the Minnesota Vikings definitively that they are interested in Aaron Rodgers. Giants, yes. Steelers, yes. Minnesota has just kind of been something that's just like, could you imagine? Could you imagine? Now, with the New York Times' Athletic reporting that, like, hey, they are certainly weighing the option of bringing Aaron in, you have to bring that into the contemplation for Aaron. Aaron loves the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
And if you listen to him speak, he loves, I'm not saying Brett Favre didn't, but with everything and with how that went. Aaron, when he was on the Jets, Aaron, whenever he got done with his darkness retreat, everything that Aaron has talked about since leaving the Packers about the Packers is that he loves that place. Loves the organization, loves the people, loves the city, even the people that wanted his ass out of town. I think Aaron even doesn't even think about that because of everything that happened in Green Bay. So going to the Vikings, I don't know how much he's contemplating or wondering about or what they're offering, but if that is a real thing taking place, I think Aaron has some little drawbacks too, just strictly because what that would mean for his relationship with Green Bay, Ty Shabbat.
Yeah, and I almost think too, with no malice, for him it'd probably be pretty cool, if these are the last 2 years he's going to play, like he'll be able to play at Lambeau 2 more times, which obviously like that place is super special to him and he loves going back and playing there. But I think maybe this has to do something with the hang up, because if that is a possibility, like we saw how good the Vikings were last year, almost were the number 1 seed in the NFC. If that at all was a possibility, then it'd almost be irresponsible for him not to wait, just a little bit and see if that could happen. Because when you look at the Vikings, we talk about all these other veteran quarterbacks. Like Aaron is kind of the only one who's left right now where if he goes into Minnesota, he's probably going to be a starter. Like, I guess you could argue that with Russell Wilson, but chances are a lot of these guys who are kind of left and haven't signed places, like if they're going to go to Minnesota, there's a good chance that they're going to be that veteran behind J.J. McCarthy, whereas Rodgers knows, like, hey, if I go in there, like, I'm probably going to start and I'm going to have the best core of receivers I've had since Devontae and Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, and, Kevin O'Connell drawing up plays is obviously a beautiful thing. The hang-up could be, though, maybe his love of Tomlin is potentially drawing him away from the Vikings. There is so many things that could be in it. AJ, you've said for multiple days that you would selfishly like to see him with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like you said, you would like to see him with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that because you're the all-time leading tackler for the Green Bay Packers, or why is that particularly the case? And what are your thoughts on him with the Vikings?
No, I mean, I think thinking of Aaron on the Vikings is crazy to think if you plugged him in there with the team, with the talent that they have around him. But the Vikings are the only team that's left, I feel like, in this whole sweepstakes to try to sign him. That, like Ty said, they have to actively think about, hey, what does the future look like for J.J. McCarthy? What will this do to him if we bring Aaron in? Aaron's not coming in to be the vet backup that J.J. McCarthy can lean on. Like, that's not the case. So what does it do for JJ's his progression, for what he's going to do? Like, how does he handle it if you bring Aaron in? Is he on board? I don't know. All that stuff I would imagine is going on behind the scenes. But the Vikings kind of have to be – they probably got to be careful publicly what they say, just because they do have a guy they drafted in the first round last year that played well until he was hurt. We haven't seen a ton of stuff on him. And, he is the future of the Vikings. But do you take like a year or two and let Aaron have a run at this thing? I don't know. That's what I would imagine. I would love to hear the Vikings, like behind the scenes, that their front office, like hear the text. I don't know if they're putting it in text. I'm sure they're using WhatsApp, hopefully, or something like that. But they just trying to hear them talk through what's going on. They don't want anything on there. I mean, I know I should probably use WhatsApp. I don't. All my stuff's out there. But I'm just saying, like,
now every message you send is screenshotable. Is how you should view everything. That is how you should view everything. That's why if you're going to send one that's a little negative, make sure it's at least hilarious. Because whenever it gets out, people will be like, "Yup, that is my mantra." If I have to text somebody something negative, like they've certainly earned it and put out there, people will be like, yeah, that was pretty.
Hats off.
That's pretty good. Yeah. That is pretty good. So you're right with that whole thing. But the Minnesota Vikings, they could go to bed one night thinking one thing and literally wake up the next morning thinking another thing. And I think it's the same thing for Aaron right now too. I think it's potentially the same thing for Aaron. And the same reason why it's probably taking so long is the same reason why he's pretty good at football. He's a deep thinker. Like he's a deep
calculated
thinker. Very calculated.
Quite.
Wants to be prepared. Wants to know all the He's a hippie for sure, but also in between.
Mike Tomlin's got to be selling it, though. Sorry to cut you off. Mike Tomlin's got to be selling. Hey, man, like you see, like I don't have losing seasons here. You've seen what I've been able to do, what this team has been able to do. Can you imagine what it looks like with you? I know he's 41 years old and all that, but can you imagine what this team could do with you at the helm? So those conversations have to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the Jets, and I know people are, kind of thinking that Aaron stinks because of the Jets situation, but the Jets are not an NFL franchise, okay? They are not legitimate. They are a terrible, terrible group. They will never win. Maybe they can with Aaron Glenn. I doubt it. But when you look at the Steelers, like that's a completely different situation. And Mike Tomlin, like you have a real leader. How many times has people come on here, Michael Lombardi in particular, talking about supreme leader? Like the Steelers have that with Mike Tomlin, and they know exactly where they're going. And now they have DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and they have a couple running backs, and they have Muth. It's like we're acting as if the offense with Minnesota is levels and levels above. Justin Jefferson absolutely is, one of one. But like DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and Pat Freiermuth are no schlubs. Like those three together would be unbelievable to play with for him.
Especially it's got a running back, right?
Gainwell.
Ken Gainwell?
Yeah, good player.
Jalen Warren, we're all fans of.
And the offensive line?
Getting better.
Okay, so that's the big question.
Yeah.
Vikings also got sacked, 10 times in the playoff game last year.
Yeah, I agree in one game, but they had like a top 5, top 3 offensive line all
And
season.
spent a bunch of money on the offensive line in free agency.
And they spent a lot of money in free agency as a whole.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings are like, now is our time, which is why the J.J. McCarthy convo is like, our whole team is built for now is the time. Is J.J. ready right now? That's a tough conversation to have, especially with how great he was, then an injury happening, how people bounce on the other side. I got faith in J.J. being a guy. I do, especially with everybody around him that I respect's opinion says like, this is a guy. This is a guy. It's like, do the Vikings want to have him have a year behind a pro for behind the scenes?
More faith.
In the meeting room, like everything that happens as a professional quarterback that I wish a lot of these younger guys would have an opportunity to be able to do. I even said I wished Andrew Luck, even though he took our team to the playoffs his rookie year, I wish he would have been able to watch Peyton operate as the CEO of a football team in the NFL. Like how you gotta, how you can, what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to do, who you're allowed to talk to, what you're allowed to say to people, what you're allowed to be like, nah, I don't like that play, I'm not doing it. I don't like that player on my team. I don't want him out there. I don't trust this guy. I would rather do this. What about when we're doing this? Like the quarterback taking ownership and understanding who he is and what he is a massive piece to teams having success. So like, is JJ that guy? I think they've said he's a great leader. I think they've said JJ McCarthy has been ready to be a professional quarterback since high school through IMG and everything like that. But do you want to give him an opportunity to watch Aaron for another year? Is the convo that's happening right now. And then in Pittsburgh, it's like, Bob, we're trying to win right now, too. And the AFC North's only getting better. And the AFC has obviously been dominated by one particular team. But if you watch that Super Bowl, there's people in the AFC that think, like, maybe now the Chiefs are gettable. I don't necessarily understand that thought. Joining us is a man who brought up the Supreme Commander tagline that you talked about. Tomlin's certainly that whenever you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and has been for a long, long time. Now he's the general manager for the UNC Tar Heel football team. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Lombardi. Yeah.
What's up, guys? You guys are busy, man. All that money going out the window. Everybody's busy.
Okay.
Just let's not forget who won free agency last year and how did that end up for most teams, right? I think that's the memory you have to always Jacksonville's always won every free agency every single year. They haven't gone to the playoffs. I think this is just a little bit of the part of team building, right? I think you got to put this all in perspective.
Let's put it in perspective. If you're Aaron Rodgers, okay, let's say Aaron Rodgers wants to play football again. And I know you've been very busy down at UNC. I assume you've been paying attention to what's going on in the NFL because you have kids in the NFL. Everything, your life is football. So I assume you know. The conversation right now in Pittsburgh is, when is Aaron going to make a decision? That's what everybody's thinking. But I think Aaron is contemplating a lot. It hasn't come out from Minnesota definitively that they're interested in Aaron Rodgers, although the New York Times, The Athletic said they're certainly interested. But like Schefter's saying, I don't have any real info about the Vikings being interested in Aaron. The Giants, though, are saying, we're waiting on Aaron. Steelers seemingly the same exact thing. If you're Aaron and you're playing again, let's assume that is the case first. What are you thinking about more so than anything if you're Aaron Rodgers before you make the decision, Lumbo?
Well, I want to get the bad taste of the Jets out of my mouth. And I think that, look, last year Minnesota wasn't supposed to win anything. Remember, they had Sam Darnold, and how could they ever win with Sam Darnold? And I think what that proves is what Bill Walsh said to me in 1984. Very few people can coach the quarterback, and even fewer can evaluate him. And I think when you look at the Minnesota Vikings and what Kevin O'Connell's able to do with the quarterback there, I think you have to give that strong consideration. I think the strongest point for Pittsburgh, obviously Mike Tomlin managing the game, not trying to win the game with offensive football and doing things that put the quarterback in really harm's way, is Arthur Smith is an outstanding offensive coordinator. I think he knows how to run the game. He knows how to win the game. That's the most important thing. It's not how many passes are we throwing, it's how are we going to win the game today. And I think O'Connell and Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin do a good job. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, and certainly he knows more than I do, I'm looking at a situation where I'm going to be part of the team, not have to carry the team. Because that carrying the team, we saw that with the Jets last year. that just makes you the target and no one else.
Yeah, and a lot of people are holding, obviously, the last 2 years with the Jets against them. Tone Diggs, obviously a big-time Steelers fan. Also, Connor, big-time Patriots fan, have been like, can we really judge at the Jets, though? Because the Jets is the Jets. Did you see anything out of Aaron at the end of the year that makes you think, you know what, this guy can still win a Super Bowl, especially if he's put in a good spot? For me, yes, I'm friends with the guy. AJ, yes, we're friends with the guy. Everybody here, the last 3-4 games, Dominique Foxworth led off with a QBR stat that I did not expect, actually, this morning about how he ended the season on First Take or Get Up. I forget which one it was. And it was I remember watching the Jets towards the end because we actually watched the games because we had to because we're talking to him on Tuesday. And they looked like what the Jets we thought were going to look like with the entire staff that they had. He was moving, he was running, he was escaping, he was throwing dimes. They were getting open. It felt like he was back to being a guy again. What are your thoughts on that? And when do you know if a guy still got it?
I think when he's be able to throw the ball down the field, make plays, I think Aaron still can do that. I think when you put him with the right quarterback coach, somebody who's going to demand from him, kind of going to ask him to do things behind an offensive line that can protect. I think what Minnesota's done in free agency, they've signed, look, they've won me over. They signed 2 good defensive linemen, assuming Hargrave is healthy, and 2 offensive linemen that can really enhance their team. And they had a good team. So I think if you go to a situation where we put so much on the quarterback that he has to lead us to victory, and we hate the term manage the game because we think that is condescending to the quarterback, when in reality, way you set up the game for the quarterback to have success is part of the program. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is tremendous, but Andy Reid sets up the game for him to have success. That's what Kevin O'Connell did for Sam Darnold. I mean, that's the challenge out at Seattle. Can Sam Darnold maintain that level of play without the same coach? I think those are the things you have to take into consideration. And I think that Aaron's smart enough to know that. He's got to go to a team that is about the 3 phases, offense, defense, and the kicking game, and not have all these expectations all over him.
Lombo, is it possible that this Minnesota Vikings team, are they sitting there and worry about possibly stunting the growth of J.J. McCarthy, or how he would feel if they brought a guy like Aaron in to be the starter for a year or so?
I think, to me, I'm not sure we think it's J.J. McCarthy's healthy. I think there was some concerns going through the season that maybe that knee injury was going to take a little bit more time. Look, any young quarterback, it's year 2 of his contract. They got 5 years. What are we in a rush for, right? If they sign Aaron Rodgers and they have him in their program, they're able to play 1 year, get him going, and maybe he takes over the starting job. He looked good in preseason, but we have learned this so often, that guys that look good in preseason doesn't always translate into the regular season. I mean, look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I mean, he had 2 great preseasons. The Browns thought he was going to be the next great quarterback for their franchise, and now they've traded him to Philadelphia. So I think you have to really temper down what happened in preseason. Only Kevin O'Connell and the people in that Minnesota Viking organization know where we're going with McCarthy. But more than anything, they've got to be concerned about that knee.
He is, by all accounts, a dude, but a lot of dudes get into the NFL, take a little time to learn. I don't think it's a bad thing. And if he has a 15-year career, we won't remember, the 1-2 years that he kind of waited. 1 year getting injured, 1 year maybe watching behind Aaron, especially if they have the success. And if he goes to Pittsburgh, it's like the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I know right now they're like, come on. As soon as he starts slicing and dicing for the Steelers, they'll be completely behind him. Let's remember a couple days here in March, we might get a little bit antsy, but whenever season comes around, if you're winning ball, it's the only thing that matters. I think that is the only thing that cares, or that Aaron cares about as well.